everyone, my name is Justin Park from Metadium. Just before I start my slide, how many of you familiar with DID, Decentralized Identification? Okay, two of them. All right, so I just want to, I've been here yesterday and today watching the blockchains technology applied to the various games and the potentials and everything. So prior to, I should introduce what we did. The Metadium is not a gaming company. We are the blockchain company, and then we did our ICO last year, and then successfully raised about 40,000 ethers. And I think because of all you guys are from the gaming industry, I think it's going to be a bit of helpful to share my experiences with ICOs and then other non-blockchain gaming space, other real blockchain spaces. So as of now, even the blockchain industry itself, every different industries, different companies and groups of peoples have different terminologies about blockchains. So I would like to start with how I understand the blockchain itself. So myself categorized blockchain as four different kind of combination of different technologies combined together, which is 1 and 2, which can be a DLT, distributed ledger, and then it's combined with consensus mechanisms and together with just regular databases. And the second part of the blockchain itself, its key component is the cryptography part. So it's encryption and decryption kind of thing. And thirdly, lastly, it's a technology about P2P technology. So when you approach the people and then you say you're developing blockchain gaming, and then what kind of technology you apply to your games? That's the question. And you have to ready for the answer, and how can you differentiate with a centralized manner, which seems like more efficient most of the time. So that's the challenges in the gaming industry, I think. And then the reason I was interested in participating in blockchain game industry and then myself here is when I raised the ICO, it was ideally, I was fascinated with the ICO because of two reasons. Then number one, the ICO was very fancy mechanisms for fundraising. So, and then number two, at the same time, I was very naive thinking that it was very cool idea to bootstrap the users even before I launched my product. But that was just ideal. At the end, it's all speculators, and then the ICO becomes, actually, it's kind of a pain point to run my business as of now. So when you think about the ICOs and fundraising and then selling NFTs in advance, you have to be very careful that what you're trying to achieve is going to be work or not. It's very, very have to be careful with that. Second reason that I'm here is that throughout the last year and a half of doing my blockchain business myself, the most challenging thing, everybody talk about mass adoptions, but the most important thing is the reason that we are not seeing any mass adoption in the blockchain, any of the product services, is that it's very difficult to deliver the concept of the blockchain itself. Not only the blockchain, but also the concept of the cryptocurrency, the wallet, private keys. All these things is too difficult for everybody. It's almost impossible. So I slightly pivoted my strategy. So I'd rather go out there and then selling my product to the individuals. I was thinking it's better to focus on the young generation, the game players who doesn't even have a concept of blockchains, but naturally understands the digital currencies and digital economy throughout playing games. So I think this event and then this movement of gaming industry having an interest in the blockchain is quite positive towards the mass adoption of blockchain itself. So let's go into the what's the DID and what's the blockchain. So I think the blockchain, to me, is I recall it as a paradigm shift. It's a true enabling technology for Web 3.0, which all basically the whole concept is that all the data has to go back to individual, not the centralized manner, but every data has to go back to the owners, That's everything. So where we can start, we can start with the DID, decentralized ID. So if you think about identification, I mean, every game companies, they are having some sort of a login system or at least an authentication platform. But why do you have it? Have you asked yourself why do you have it? If you go arcade in the real world, for example, or you visit the Starbucks for a coffee, do they ask for the ID? No. You just enter and then you just enjoy their services. And then as and when they request for the services, you present your services identification, such as hotel or other certain occasion, you show your identification. But most of cases in real life, you don't show your identification. So why in the digital space, why everybody collecting all our individuals' personal data? That's the question that we start from. So they don't need it. And at least in a certain aspect, some of the service providers, in order to provide the quality service for you, they may ask your personal information. Then only then you can consent that you can use my data. So that's the basic ideas of DID. And then it's just saying whenever you enter any kind of digital internet services, you are saying, it's me. This is me, and I'm using your service. That's it. So that's the whole idea of decentralized ID. So Microsoft is doing it. And we have this foundation called DIF. So there is this group of people doing some sort of like standardization about the DID. So this slide is not only applied to the game industry itself, but rather all the service providers, they're owning users' data, either one way or another. So this is it seems like it's your data, but ironically, only thing you can do is you can access to it. All right. So if it applies to the gaming industry, actually, you play the game, but the ownership is not your character, or that's not your items. I think it's interesting that everybody's talk about the NFTs yesterday and today, but actually, let's say there's one missing point that if you store your items or your character on the blockchain, then how you can guarantee that it belongs to you? That means there has to some in one way or another, the NFT, the tokens, the ownership has to be attached together, which is against the regulation, such as the GDPR. Once you store your information on the blockchain, which is there's a violent to rights to erase, be forgotten. So that's impossible. And then if you store some sort of like a pointer or whatever to service providers' central databases, then what's the point of having a blockchain? So true NFTs, if all the here in the game developers, you're truly wants to exploring the power of NFTs and then this whole value of the NFTs, then definitely you have to think about to apply the decentralized identification as a platform. So I own the ID. This is all about the data privacy and then self-sovereign identity. So basically, either your terminals or the place that you choose, either your PC or somewhere in the clouds, and then all the data is owned by you. And then it's purely encrypted. And then only way to disclose the information is with your private key. So that's the whole concept of the DID. Okay, so there's a different kind of I would say there's two different aspects of a DID. One is simply identification. If you think about identity of yourself, there's a different aspect, attributes, I would say. So first is a biometric aspect. That's you're born with, like fingerprints, your eye colors, etc. And then second component would be the government attribute, like social security numbers, passport, driver's license. So those are the government attribution is the one is called the verifiable credential. So they have in order to construct this DID environment, you have an issuer and verifier and a blockchain to verify things. So that's the component. But if you broaden the concept of the DID itself in a digital space, that most and biggest attribute of your identity is about the social attribution. So for example, name is your social attribution, but it's given by your parents, but actually name is very wide, has a bi-directional characteristic. So your name is recognized by your friend because they call you Justin. You know, that's a social attribute. Why Facebook's targeting all these by the Congress and then asking for breakdown? Because Facebook has the biggest social attribution. You know, they have all your photos, all your information, the school you went, and the color you like, the music you like. That's all social attribution about yourself. But DID is the only way that prevent these scary things happening. That's why one of the reasons why all the U.S. government, Congress is tackling down the Facebook, because they're too scary. They know too much. So DID is a paradigm shift. It's in the next 5 years or so, either us or someone else has to do it. So we are doing the DID project, and then there's a couple other Web 3.0 movements there. So one is the blockchain space. There's this project called Blockstack, and then they're providing this infrastructure, the full stack blockchain-based decentralized ID and then data management. And then there is by the Tim Berners-Lee is doing the project called Solid, and then they're providing these individual databases called the pod. And then what it happens in the future, when there is all DID and a decentralized database environment, then actually when you develop the game, there is a front-end, back-end development. But actually, the back-end development, there will be no longer back-end development because it all be personalized and standardized. So all the services and games, they only can do implement in the front end. So that's the future, that's the paradigm shifting that we are going after. And then that's the trend that you guys have to focus on. So first, number one is just like data privacy, data ownership, and then it's not only me saying it, but Europeans, EUs, they already activated a GDPR, and all the regulations, even in the US, the COPPA, the Children's Privacy Protection Act, those are the regulations getting stronger. So if you want to expand your business territories to not in your own country, but in a global scale, that you also have to take these the regulation into the consideration. All right, so this is pretty much I already explained. And I think this is pretty much the same as well. So interesting thing in the gaming space, so let's say if all the games they take DID as one of the login features together with social login such as Facebook login and Google login. Then I'm sure most of you heard about the multiverse concept, where there's one game item can be reused to the other game items, because all game items belongs to me, and then I have the ownership, and then in my own database. And then if I go play game B, then I can apply my items to the game B and characters. So this is the DID can be the fundamental enabling platform for multiverse features in the future gaming. And then it not only ends up with collaborating with other games and then other titles, but also can be applied to many other services provided at the same time. And then DID itself can be I mean, the gameplay, the history of gameplay can be a verifiable credential as well. So for instance, you can actually, leveraging blockchain technology, you can actually set a certain claim and achievement kind of systems that user play like a certain level of your game. That's if you provide a FPS, for instance, then if someone else, if the other developers come out with a new FPS, and then they look for those players who has a history of FPS plays. So you can actually pinpoint the target, the new user acquisition, and then it helps the monetization as well. All right, so that's about it. If you have a further question on the DID, I'm here will be next hour or so, so we can have a further discussion. Questions, please.
Great, thank you very much. I just want to sort of add, I think this is an incredibly important area that's going to become increasingly important. Like you mentioned GDPR, but increasingly, I think know your customer is going to be something that's going to become increasingly important, especially in the blockchain gaming. But yeah, let me pass the microphone to you. You had a question?
Hi, my name's Kwa. That last example at the end, when you're saying you can look at players' history, like how, in essence, is that different from what Facebook does? Because Facebook doesn't actually sell data. Right.
So actually, the ownership where the data reside is the difference. So Facebook owns the data is centralized, but the DID you choose the place that your data reside. So it can be your terminal, it can be your PC, or you can be somewhere in the cloud that you choose. And then the important thing is no one can see it, able to see it, because it's encrypted with your own private key. For others, your data is meaningless. It's just hash numbers.
But it's an interesting one because I think, like you're saying, that Facebook doesn't sell the data, but it does sell access to targeting via that data. And I think the advantage of this kind of blockchain mechanic is that essentially we have a more control over the choice of how our behavioral information is leveraged to our advantage rather than to necessarily the commercial advantage of others. But I think there's still lots of opportunity about what it might mean and what it might do, particularly.
It's simply saying by the blockchain you get rid of the single point of failure.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
That's good. Yeah.
Hi, Colin, Singularity Sports and Hungry Games. Very quickly, have you run into any forecastable, foreseeable issues with DID versus Libra? Obviously, Facebook is charging, various very, very lovely companies massive amounts to create this data frenzy. In this environment, how do we foresee DID, being safe from all of this unregulated situation?
Like I said, this is very early stage, but the most important thing is people doesn't know, like why I care about my data. Right now people start to understand the importance of your data, but really, like for here, everybody, I say, okay, here's the ID, you use it from now, and then you have to manage your keys, and if you lose it, then you're screwed. Who do that? So that's why I'm here in the blockchain gaming. That here, all the developers here, the only way that we can bring this word, a better word, faster, is to educate youngsters.
Yeah.
That we have to teach them the importance of the personal data, as well as like how to securely manage your data.
And on that note, perfect way to end. Thank you very much.
All right, great. Thank you.